And welcome back to the channel. We've got our college basketball predictions here for November 10th. Here on the channels, we were predicting college basketball all season long with our 5 best bets daily here on the channel. And yes, the setup is not the normal setup. I am actually in Oregon right now, and it is echoey as hell in here. So I'm going to try my best to do this. And yes, the camera is not my normal camera. I kid you not. I am not, again, at home right now. I'm not in my normal setup. And I brought my actual camera, and I somehow can't get it to work on the laptop that I brought here. So, I don't know. This is going to have to do. It is what it is. My microphone should be working, but if there's some static at some point, my fault. I don't know. I've been trying to get this setup working, and if it's echoey, again, I can't control that. So, we've got our 5 best bets here for college basketball here on November 10th. I get it. Again, the NFL, huge day, obviously, but there is still some value with college basketball. Yesterday, big college football day, but still we went 5-0 on the college basketball plays, our first sweep of the board, and we're looking for more of the same here tonight on the channel. Make sure to join us in about an hour for our NBA predictions as well. We're just posting the college basketball one earlier today because the games will start at about 9 a.m. on the West. So let's get it going. Our first game of the day, we will be taking Michigan to go on the road and cover the 1.5 points against Wake Forest. Their 1.5 point dogs in this one are the Michigan Wolverines, and I get it. This was one of the worst teams in the Big Ten last season. They were absolutely atrocious. They were complete bottom of the barrel, but I do still think they're able to go out here and beat this Wake Forest team. Both these teams haven't lost so far this season. You look at Wake Forest. This is a squad that I believe is 2-0 going into this game. This one is in Greensboro, North Carolina. Sorry, Michigan is a 1.5 point favorite in this one, but Wake Forest 2-0 this year. They beat Copen State and NCAB. 2 victories against 2 teams, again, that aren't all that great. You got 15 points in their last game out of Travion Spillers, who's averaging 12 and 12.5 so far this year, the senior out of Charleston, South Carolina. Wake Forest, again, 2-0 so far in the year, but I do like what we get out of Michigan in this one. Again, last year was an all-time low year for Michigan in terms of basketball. They've played 1 game so far this season, and they went out and they beat Cleveland State 101-53. Again, it's Cleveland State, but a dominant victory for Michigan. Obviously, last year did not start off well at all for the Wolverines. They struggle to win basketball games. It's that simple. They struggle to win games. They finished the regular season, at 8-24, 3-17 in the Big Ten. But you get them here against an ACC school in Wake Forest. And I get it again. Wake Forest was not bad last season. They had a key victory at home against Duke. Obviously, the game where Filipowski, after the game, the fans stormed the court. Regardless, Wake Forest was the team that was in the NIT last season. They beat App State in the first round of the tournament, and they ended up losing it to the Georgia Bulldogs by 6 in the second round of the NIT. I believe that game was at Wake Forest. Yeah, Georgia went on the road and beat Wake Forest in that game. I like Michigan in this one. You look at what Wake Forest did early in the year. Last year, they dropped 2 games to two somewhat big schools. They lost to Georgia in their first matchup on the road in Athens, and then they played Utah later on in their non-conference schedule, and they lost Utah as well. And then they played LSU. So, again, Wake Forest scheduled 3, pretty solid squads to start off the year last season out of the Power 4. They lost all 3 of them. They bounced back and beat Florida and Rutgers. But I just think Michigan's a better team. Michigan got better in the offseason. I don't think Wake Forest did. Obviously, in Michigan, they hit rock bottom last season. It's not going to get any worse than that. I mean, it started last year when they lost at home against Long Beach State, and they lost to Memphis, and then it just kept spiraling, right? I mean, they lost to Indiana, who was absolutely horrible in the Big Ten last season. They lost to Oregon on the road. They lost to McNeese. These are schools Michigan has to beat this season. And again, they're 1-0 this year, a big win over Cleveland State. What does that show us from this Michigan squad? Absolutely nothing. They beat Cleveland State, but they did go out there, and they showed the capability of absolutely destroying a not great squad in Cleveland State. They beat them by 50 points. You got 19 and 13 out of the center, or their junior center, in Danny Wolf out of Illinois. I think Michigan should be able to win this game. Again, we went 5-0 in the picks yesterday. We're starting off hot, hopefully, with Michigan here in the first game of today, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. Give me Michigan to cover the 1.5 points. When I made these graphics last night, Michigan was a 1.5 point dog. They are now the favorites. Actually, I think I just butchered it. Give me Michigan to win the basketball game. I think they will cover the 1.5 points on the road as well. Let's move on to our next one here. We go on to Drake versus SF Austin in this one. Stephen F. Austin, excuse me. I like Drake to win this game. I mean, obviously Drake was the much better team last year. This one is at 2 Eastern time. This game's in Des Moines, Iowa. All right, Stephen F. Austin, not a horrible team, but I just do think Drake's better. Drake 1-0 this year. They beat some D2 school 93-41. I mean, we're not going to put anything in that. And for Stephen F. Austin, the Lumberjacks went out there and beat Dallas 85-81. Again, not much we can take from either of these first two these team's first games. You look at what Stephen F. Austin did last year. They were an 18-15 squad. They went 10-10. In the Southland Conference, ended up losing their conference tournament to UT Arlington after beating Albany Christian in their first game in the conference tournament last season. And Drake was phenomenal. Again, they're probably not going to match the same success they saw last season, but Drake obviously winning the Missouri Valley last year. You look at their conference tournament, beating Evansville by 20 points, beating Bradley by 5 points. We just saw lose to Washington State the other night, a game that we did pick right. We got about even odds in that one for Wazoo. And then after that, a win, obviously, over Indiana State, a huge victory over the Sycamores, who had a lot of hype attached to him, who had beat Drake earlier on in the season as well. And it was a huge win again for Drake. They're a good team. They obviously made the NCAA tournament last year, lost to Wazoo, and obviously again Drake is not the same team that they were last year. That's just how college basketball is going to work. The mid-majors are going to lose a lot of guys to the portal. Tucker DeVries went on over from Drake over to West Virginia. He was the leading scorer last season for the Drake Bulldogs, and he's going on to West Virginia, and he's averaging 20 points a game currently. It's rough for Drake. Obviously, they're going to lose all their main guys. Wright's on over to North Texas for his senior season. I do think Drake's still the better school than Stephen F. Austin. Again, we can't take away much from either of these teams' first games of the year just because, again, they both played, piss poor D2 schools. Again, York College, Nebraska was the victory for Drake. They did in that game, though, get 30 points out of their senior forward in Daniel Abreu. Huge victory for Drake in that one. And a big game for Abreu, his first as a member of the Drake Bulldogs. And I like Drake to win this game at home. Again, Drake gets 4.5 points in this one. I'd expect them to go out there and pick up the victory. I don't think Stephen F. Austin is at the caliber that Drake is, so give me the Bulldogs to cover the 4.5 points, and they are going to win outright as well. Next up, we move on to a game between Princeton and Northeastern University. Guys, I think this one's a blowout. I get the game's in Boston, but I just think Princeton runs right through Northeastern. As of recording, I believe the odds are still -6.5 for Princeton. I would jump all over this. Northeastern struggled in their last game against Boston University. Again, it was a Boston versus Boston matchup. They win the game by 8 points on Monday. But that's Boston University. They got 24 points out of L.A. Pratt, a forward out of Columbus, Ohio. Guard out of Columbus, Ohio. Played at Elon last season. Now he's going to be one of the primary scorers for this Northeastern Huskies school. You look at Princeton. We backed them in the Duquesne game, and obviously they went out there. They covered the spread in the Duquesne one. They beat Iona in their first game by 1 point. Princeton, again, we talked about them at length earlier on in the season before that Duquesne ball game, but this is one of the best teams in the Ivy League last season. I mean, they were projected to go out there, win the Ivy League, make a, we'll see. We didn't know if they're going to make a run in the tournament or not, but they were projected to be like a 13th seed, I do believe. They win their they go 12-2 in Ivy League play, and immediately the Ivy League tournament's rough. It's a 4-team bracket. They lose to Brown, and Brown goes on again to the Ivy League championship game. Princeton was a great school last year. They beat Duquesne. They beat Rutgers. When these two teams matched up last season, Princeton and Northeastern, the game was at Princeton, but Princeton won the game by 14 points. Again, Princeton did lose some in the portal last season, but they did retain some of their guys as well. Again, the big victory over Duquesne is key. They got 17 points in that game out of one Caden Pierce. The 6'7 junior dropped 17 points in that game. He dropped 18 in the win over Iona. I feel good about Princeton winning this game. Again, they beat Northeastern last year, and they beat them handedly. Xavier Lee obviously led their team in points in the Iona game. He's averaging 20 so far this season as well. I like Princeton to go out here and win this game and absolutely dominate Northeastern. Again, Northeastern not projected to be all that great of a team this year. Last season, they went 12-20, 7-11 in conference play. I would not expect them to go anywhere this season, and this just feels like a mismatch. And I feel like the line is really good as well for Princeton, -6.5. I'd expect them to absolutely dominate this Northeastern team. Northeastern shouldn't even be in there with them. You saw these two teams play last season. Princeton beat them by double digits. I get the games in Boston this time around, but I don't really think it affects it too much. Give me Princeton to go on the road and dominate Northeastern. The 6.5 points should come easy in this one. Give me the Princeton Tigers to win the game on the road and to cover the spread as well. We move on to our next game, and we go to UNI. Northern Iowa versus the UC Irvine Anteaters, and we've picked UCI before this season, and we are going to continue to pick UCI. I really like this Anteaters team this season. Out of the Big West Conference, they are 2-0 so far this year, beating Chapman, beating Loyola Marymount. We backed them in the Loyola Marymount game, in a game where I believe they were either 1.5 point favorites or 1.5 point dogs. They ended up winning the game by 15 points on Friday night on the road, and now they do again go to Northern Iowa for this game, a team that is 2-0 this year in the Missouri Valley Conference, coming off a victory over Milwaukee in their last game. And it's been back-to-back scoring efforts for the Panthers, for Titan Anderson, their senior guard, back-to-back leading scoring games for the UNI Panthers. He dropped 13 in the victory on Monday and then 19 in their last game against Milwaukee. They're going to need another big effort out of him tonight. Northern Iowa doesn't really score the ball all that well, at least with their starting unit. Obviously, again, they started to take over the 2 games that they played with their bench unit coming in. Again, Titan Anderson, a guy played at Northern Iowa all 5 years so far in his collegiate career. But we like the Irvine Anteaters a lot. This is, again, one of the better teams, I think, in the Big West this season. You look at what the Anteaters did last year. They were 1-and-done in their conference tournament. But, I mean, this was a school that was 17-3 in the Big West last season. They absolutely dominated their field. Their only losses in conference play were a road loss to UC San Diego, a road loss to UC Irvine, which doesn't look great, but then a road loss to UC Davis as well. This is a team that beat USC last season. They beat Toledo, they beat Rice, they beat South Dakota, they beat Pepperdine, and they went into the NIT, stayed somewhat competitive with the Utah Utes, but ended up losing the basketball game. Again, this is a team that underperformed in their conference tournament last year, and there's a reason, again, you didn't see them in the NCAA tournament, because that's where they were projected to go. I like Irvine a lot this season. Again, it's been, so far so good with the Anteaters. Again, we got them at pretty good value for their game against Loyola Marymount, and I feel like this is just more of the same as well. I feel like we are going to continue to get decent value out the Irvine Anteaters, but I feel like this is as good as it gets this year in the Big West. I truly think they are one of the best teams to come out this conference this year. And, Northern Iowa, not a horrible team last year in the Missouri Valley Conference, but as a whole, they finished, slightly over 500 in that conference, 12-8. They won one game in the MVC conference tournament, beating Belmont, but then dropping, obviously, the next game to the runners-up in that tournament in the Indiana State Sycamores. They weren't a bad team last season. I just feel like Irvine is better. Give me the Anteaters to go on the road and beat Northern Iowa. Again, the only reason why UNI is getting points in this game and they're favored to win this game is because they are at home in this one. We're going to take the plus money spot here for the UC Irvine Anteaters. I think it's a great opportunity. Hell, I think ever since I made this graphic, the line has shifted. UNI now a minus 3.5 point favorite. So you can either take the points on Irvine or straight get better value out of betting the money line on the Anteaters as well. Again, I'm telling you, we went 5-0 yesterday. We're back in the road dogs. We had a lot of dogs yesterday as well. Give me Irvine to win the game on the road and upset the UNI Panthers. Going on to our final game of the day, it's the nightcap. We've got the San Jose State Spartans taking on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, and you know what we're doing. We are fading San Jose State. We have picked every single San Jose State game so far this season. We are 1-1, and it's time to go 2-1. We faded them in the West Illinois game. We saw San Jose State at home in San Jose getting 8.5 points against the West Illinois Leatherbacks, a team that, isn't the greatest, but San Jose State, guys, this is probably the worst team in the Mountain West Conference, and I was willing to, put that aside for the last game when they got Pacific, neutral site game, obviously. All these schools are in Hawaii. I thought, Pacific, absolutely horrible West Coast team. They are the worst team in the West Coast Conference. Hell, I watched them play their conference tournament game last year, I believe, against Pepperdine, and they were down 50-8 at one point in that game. No way, no how did San Jose State not win that basketball game. You know what they did? They lost by 13 points. So you know what? We're starting a new trend. We are fading San Jose State. They are not on the ban list, and I do have the ban list with me, but, they're not going to join the likes of USD and the New Orleans Pelicans and Louisiana Tech football. No, and Jacksonville State. They're not going to join that yet because, again, we can just fade them simply, and we are taking the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors to cover the 5.5 points. They're in their environment. I get it again. San Jose State's been there for 3 days at this point. It's fine. We're taking Hawaii out the Big West. This is a school last year that was competitive in the Big West, but you know what? Hawaii is a really weird team because, again, they play in the Big West Conference with teams like Davis, teams like Long Beach State, Santa Barbara, UC Irvine, UC San Diego, but obviously, again, Hawaii's got a huge home court advantage in a lot of the games they play because all those teams got to go across the Pacific Ocean to play them. But last season, obviously, I remember watching a lot of Hawaii games because, if you're a degenerate gambler like myself, you stay up until 2 in the morning. The only game on is Hawaii, so you gotta bet it, right? Bernardo da Silva screwed me a lot last season. Noel Coleman was their guard. He was dominant last year, and Hawaii lost both those guys this season. That's okay. I still think they beat San Jose State. Guys, you don't understand how bad San Jose State is. They can't score. That was evident in the West Illinois game, and it happened again against a team that plays horrible defense in Pacific. I think Akira Jacobs, the 6'10 forward sophomore out of Yokohama, Japan, who led their team in points in their first game against Life Pacific, which I assume is a Hawaii Hawaii school, that's a good sign. Hawaii just won on Friday. I think they're going to beat up on San Jose State here. Again, we are going to fade the San Jose Spartans pretty much in every single game they play this season until it doesn't work, okay? We are taking Hawaii on the money line, minus 225. You can lock that in. And then we like the 5.5 points as well for Hawaii to cover. San Jose State is just absolutely atrocious at basketball. It was apparent in their last game against one of the worst teams in all of college basketball in Pacific. And we are going to continue to fade the Spartans with the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors right here. Again, give me the 5.5 points for Hawaii, and give me the minus 225 odds in the money line as well. And folks, that will do it for our college basketball 5 best bets here for November 10th. Again, sorry for the echo or whatnot, but this is what it is. Got to make do of the situation you got. We're going to take, again, the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors in the nightcap, and then we'll have our NBA predictions coming out here on the channel later today in about an hour. Hopefully, I'm going to record that video right after this, and then we will get our UFC predictions, which was already recorded in the actual setup, later on today at about 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. on the East Coast. Again, probably no music in the background in this video, but it is what it is. We're just going to get this one out, and then we should be back to the normal setup tomorrow. So, folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.